So a while ago, I made a top 5 dumbass in distress, where I had April O'Neil and Karai from the 2012 TMNT version on the list. Growing up, I didn't like this version of April O'Neil. I thought she was annoying, a dumbass in distress, and a cocktease in the center of her love triangle. I couldn't stand her, and every episode focusing on her or having her once again be kidnapped always made me cringed up in frustration. And I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Back then, April wasn't a well-liked character in the fandom, but as I scoured the internet, I started to see more fans of her popping up recently. In fact, polls asking fans who was the best version of April O'Neil had the 2012 version win. Really? This April? So I watched a bit of the 87 cartoon where she was a classic damsel in distress, but I still thought she had a better personality than the 2012 version. I saw a couple of episodes of the 2003 version, but she seemed like a badass scientist who soon became a fighter too. I watched all of Rise, and yeah, this version of April was extremely different from the April we were used to seeing, but I still preferred this version of April over Miss I just want to be a part of the team. But it wasn't just the popularity totals that shocked me. Other fans have popped up to defend April, saying she's actually a great written character whom the fanbase has misjudged her. Really? This April? I've seen so many new videos popping up in defense of this character that it got me thinking, was I wrong? Have I let my nostalgia blind me from seeing what a truly great character this April was? Is she really this misunderstood character that the fandom had wrongfully misjudged? And for what reason? Well, that's what we're going to discuss. I went back and rewatched all of TMNT 2012 to make sure I gave April the proper judgment she deserved. And to be extra fair, I'm taking off my nostalgic goggles. I'm going to review April's character progression throughout all of the seasons to see if she really is a misunderstood, scared girl, or if she really does deserve the title of dumbass in distress. I'm also going to talk a little bit about her involvement in the love triangle, as I want to save shipping for a separate video. But seeing as the love triangle between Donnie and Casey Jones is the most focused love story, it would be hard not to mention it. But I'll try to keep it to a minimum and just focus on April. Without further ado, let's begin with the turtles bump into April and her dad walking down the streets late at night when they are immediately kidnapped by a mysterious group of men. Okay, to be fair, although yes, April was introduced as the damsel of distress for the 2 first episodes, it does make sense as to why she is one. She's an ordinary teenage girl who is caught off guard. She's supposed to be the average person suddenly being thrust into a world of mutants and madness, so it would be natural for her to be helpless and scared. I'd say the big issue in her introduction is that she's not as established as the other characters. April appears in the halfway point in the first episode, and we don't really know much about her other than shrieks. The Turtles and Splinter had more time to establish their personalities, but since April was trapped for the majority of the time, there wasn't much to know about her other than, "Let me go!" or "Help!" I'd say the worst part of April's introduction is that she feels more like a minor character than one of the main characters. If anything, her introduction establishes more that she's going to be another character's love interest than to be her own character.
Wait a minute! What's wrong with being a love interest? Do you have something against love stories?
How dare you even accuse me of that? For those new to my channel, you should know I'm a hardcore shipper. I love shipping, I love analyzing love stories, and it's a huge guilty pleasure of mine. But even then, there's a difference between a love story between 2 characters and a love story between a character and his love interest. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. A love story between 2 characters is when 2 characters that have their own unique personalities, flaws, arcs, and goals fall in love with each other. An example, Katara and Aang. Say what you want about their romance, but I can confidently say that Aang and Katara are their own characters. They have goals outside of their relationships, their own unique flaws, and they go through their own personal arcs that has nothing to do with each other throughout the story. Now, a love story between a character and their love interest is when one of the pair has their own personality, flaws, arcs, and goals outside of the relationship, while their love interest is barely a character on their own. They're tethered to their love interest and have no other purpose to the story. An example, Moxie and Millie. Now, we know a lot about Moxie, from his backstory, his flaws, his likes, his dislikes, while also watching him grow more confident in every episode, while Millie is just the supportive wife. Even in episodes where she should be the focus, it ends up becoming another Moxie episode, and all of Millie's spotlight moments are just moments to reinforce her strong love to her husband. Her character is just tethered to her love interest, and she's barely a person on her own. Going back to TMNT, other versions usually introduce April before the turtles so her character can be established. Even Michael Bay did this. In Rise, we get to see her interact with the guys, see how she's part of the team, and she even has her own quips with the villains. And Mutant Mayhem has the same issues as the 2012 version. My God, leave April alone! April is usually the heart of the gang, while also being the turtles' bridge to the human world. She's usually the one to point the gang to the right direction to search for the bad guys. It would be a disservice to the character if she was just Donnie's love interest, especially since other versions take the time to flesh her out as her own person. Okay, so now that you know the difference between the two categories, let's see which one April falls into. So as the story goes forward, we do see more of April's character. She's a determined teenager who wants to rescue her dad by any means necessary. She does get herself into some trouble, like rushing into a building with villains or getting caught by doing so. But to my surprise, she not only saves herself at times, but she sometimes saves the turtles. She also asks Splinter to start training her as a kunoichi, proving that she's a go-getter. There's also a mystery with her having a connection to the Krang, being a key for them, and her having mysterious powers. There's even times when she has to motivate the gang, like in the Season 1 finale, with her being the one to tell Splinter to help out. Okay, I admit, I'm starting to see what April defenders mean. I'd say April and Donnie fall into the two characters falling in love category. Although April does have moments when she needs to be saved, to her credit, she's starting off. If she were to suddenly start kicking ass after one session with Splinter, then she'd be a Mary Sue. Take this instant with her fight with Karai. Although yes, she was getting her ass kicked, she was still in training. It would make sense for her to be knocked around because she doesn't have the same level of experience as Karai or the Turtles. So how does she get out of this? By using the smarts that Splinter had taught her earlier in the episode. That's great! Good job, April! Alright, so maybe I was wrong about April.
I never want to see your faces ever again. I'm not gonna ask for help. Help! Great, saved by wrath. I'm never gonna live this down.
Oh, I'm not out of the game yet, boys. Season 2 begins with the Turtles accidentally unleashing mutagen all across New York, and accidentally mutating April's dad in the process. She's furious when she finds out the guys mutated her father and ends the relationship with them. Okay, so to be fair, anyone in April's situation would be rightfully mad. She just got her dad back just for him to disappear again. I can understand her frustration. But did she forget these guys just saved her dad last season? Did she forget they ran headfirst into a crane facility while being hunted by the neutralizer while she was in the dojo training her powers? Did she forget the only person who has the chance of curing her father is Donnie, the one who she's telling she wants nothing to do with him? Isn't it stupid to be ending a friendship with the only people in the world that can rescue your dad?
Wait a minute! If you were a true Turtles fans, you would know that this is a big deal. April's usually with the Turtles, so for her to be separated from the team is brilliant. She has the chance to be her own person.
I see your point, my annoying representation of my haters. April usually does tag along with the Turtles throughout their adventure. So her taking a leave from the group and doing her own thing does seem interesting. Will she find her own way of saving her dad? Last season, she was shown to be practicing ninjutsu, so will she use her new skills to help her conquest? Or how about her powers? Last season, she was shown to get better at controlling her powers, so will she start using them to track down her dad? Oh my god, what is she going to do?
She's on a date? I can't believe it! With some punk human kid!
Oh. We're doing this instead. So the next time we see her is 3 episodes after her dad's mutation, where she starts adjusting to a new life without mutants. Wait, what?
This is it, April. A new start. Just pretend you're a normal girl. Don't talk about alien robots or mutant dads, and don't even think about turtles.
What?
Mutant dads and...
So let me get this straight. April, someone who was so determined last season to rescue her dad from aliens who were also hunting her down, is now trying to start a new life without him? So let me process this again. She ended her friendship with the Turtles because they mutated her dad, but her solution was to move on without him? What was her plan? Did she think her dad would magically come back to her if she just waited long enough? What happened to her go-getter attitude? In season 1, she would do whatever it took to get information about her dad's whereabouts, even if it was dangerous. But now I guess she just gave up without even trying? So what does she do instead? Or more accurately, what does the show focus on her instead? Making a love triangle, of course. Fuck your family, who's a mindless animal scouring the city. Which boy will April end up choosing at the end? In this episode, we are introduced to Casey Jones, who asks her to tutor him, which April agrees to later that night. Meanwhile, Donnie is looking for a cure while also ranting to Timothy about his love for April, making Timothy fall in love with April? Ugh! This is another trope that I hate in female leads, and it was used a lot in the last decade, and it's called being reduced as the cheese plate. What is being reduced to the cheese plate, you may ask? Well, this trope happens when a show dominated by males have their token female be the object of desire. It doesn't matter if she has more important things to worry about, or if her personality is garbage, bland, or even if she states that she has no interest whatsoever in dating anyone. She is going to have boys fighting for her whether she likes it or not. In some cases, minor characters will also have the hots for her, even if they appear one time, because she's a girl. Men will immediately be drawn to her, even if she treats them poorly, just because she's the token girl. Meanwhile, in the main love triangle, the girl will go back and forth on who she wants to date, sometimes even juggling both men at the same time. And sometimes even the minor characters get a turn, hence the term cheese plate. Although there may be more important matters, in this case, saving April's dad, the show will still focus on who the token female will end up with, even if she claims she doesn't even want a romance. I hate this trope. I really do. A lot of these cases try to make their female leads strong, independent, and not like the average girl, but still put so much emphasis on who she will date. As stated before, a lot of these females don't really have good personalities, or even have one to begin with, and yet they have a horde of suitors lining up to claim them. Yeah, not date, claim.
Wait for her to say the words.
Fine. And she will.
Yet a lot of these romances feel very artificial or forced, because without the love triangle drama, the suitors don't have much in common with the female, or even have much chemistry with them, because the show tries to hammer the fact that the girl is not like your average girl, or even focuses on her beauty. Very shallow if you were to ask me. So even though our female leads want to be something more or to prove themselves, the show will still prioritize romance over their own personal arc, dubbing them more as the prize to win over than a person. Went on a tangent there for a second. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get back to focus. So after Timothy falls in love with April, he goes after her during her tutoring session with Casey Jones, but they both fight him off, escaping into the night. So although this is a bad episode, I do have to give April credit that she did a good job fending off Mutagen Man. Yeah, she didn't defeat him, but she's still not a full-fledged ninja yet, and she hasn't been training with Splinter in a while. Also, both April and Casey Jones saved each other during the fight, showing that they are a good tag team. So I'll give the episode a point in a sea of garbage. Also, the episode ends with April still hating the turtles, even though she sees them fighting Mutagen Man.
I knew they had something to do with this. Just keep walking, April. It's not your problem.
Be fair, TD. You promised to be fair. So on one hand, I do like she doesn't immediately forgive them, but on the other hand, we know what's going to happen. She's going to realize it was a mistake and she's going to forgive them. So why drag it out? This arc of April leaving the turtles isn't really interesting, as April doesn't really do anything that important outside of feeding the love drama. If anything, it feels like her leaving the turtles is just a weak explanation as to why she doesn't appear in certain episode. She also just bitches to the guys if they try to help her, but it doesn't really do anything to save her dad. At least they're doing something about it, April. What are you doing? I'll never forgive you for turning my dad into a bat. Never, ever. Now get out of my way. I have a math test in 5 minutes. Good luck hunting for your dinner tonight, Dad. I have more important things to worry about. Speaking of which, the next episode she's in, Karai decides to use the new footbots to eliminate April to get revenge on Splinter. Even though it would make more sense for her to go after the turtles since those are her sons, Karai isn't that smart. Check out my Karai video after this. April gets attacked by the footbots with Casey Jones, where once again they prove to be a good tag team. In fact, April tries luring the footbots away from Casey Jones, then calls Donnie for help. Then, with the help of the turtles, she manages to square up against Karai, showing her progress as a fighter. For that, I have to give them a thumbs up. In other shows, April would have been able to defeat Karai all by herself. But I love how this show is slowly progressing her as a fighter. They're taking their time, but they also show that she still uses clever ways to get out of trouble. Good job, TMNT 2012. So the episode ends with her reuniting with the guys and finally forgiving them. Yeah, like I said, this small arc of April leaving the team didn't do much for her other than getting her close to Casey Jones. This small arc was used to start the love triangle that unfortunately we are held hostage in throughout the rest of the show. So I know I categorized April in the 2 characters in love story, but now she is slowly veering towards the character and their love interest category, with Casey Jones now added to the pile. But it's still early in the season. Maybe she'll get better. What's the next episode she's in?
Great. Saved by wrath. I'm never gonna live this down.
Oh, look. My favorite episode with my favorite trope. The next episode that focuses on April, she wants to prove to the team she should be taken more seriously and go out with them on more missions. Where Raph replies,
"It took 15 years of training before Master Splinter let us go on a real mission. You got a long way to go, sister."
Which is a great point. But April believes she's ready, so she tries to prove herself by being incompetent, hiding from the enemy, rushing in when she's told not to, then getting easily captured, and putting the cherry on top, she bitches when the guys try to save her. I've already talked a lot about the dumbass in distress trope in other videos, and why I hate it so much. So I'll focus on why this particular episode is so painful to watch. First, the show establishes in the previous episode that April is becoming a better fighter. Yeah, she still needs help, but she's shown to outsmart her enemy and also being stronger than the last season. So why is she shown to be so incompetent in this episode? Second, since she is so incompetent in this episode to the point where it's her own fault that she got captured and got the guys in trouble too, she appears like such a bitch when she whines that the guys have to save her.
Great. Saved by wrath. I'm never gonna live this down.
I am not afraid to leave you, April. I'd say the whining would work if in this episode the guys were babying her while she was an actual competent fighter. Like she was handling the enemies fine on her own, but the guys were jumping in when she didn't need it, then talking down to her. But look at her. She's hiding behind the couch. Then Donnie comes in and says,
I'll protect you, April.
Protect yourself.
That's a weird way of saying thanks for saving my life, Donnie. Third, instead of April learning a lesson of being patient, not rushing into battle, and endangering her friends, it's the turtles who learn not to underestimate her. Huh? Where in the episode does April prove herself? What, here when she uses her powers to save the day? That came out of nowhere. Although I praise April's slow progression as a Kunoichi, her powers are treated more like a plot device. Sometimes she has to train it, sometimes it just magically appears, and sometimes it appears because the plot demands it, like in this case. This was pure luck. So the turtles admitting they couldn't have saved the day without her doesn't feel warranted because they wouldn't have been in danger in the first place if she hadn't rushed in. Finally, I would have actually liked this episode if it was April who learned a lesson, not the turtles. I'd even excuse this episode if in this scene where the turtles realize they shouldn't underestimate April would also apologize for causing trouble for the guys and realize that she isn't as ready as she should be. Humble herself, takes accountability for herself. But writers think women can't handle taking responsibility for themselves. God forbid a woman admits she made a mistake or admit she has a flaw. No, if she isn't 100% perfect or in the right, then she's not strong. That's why in some cases, when the girl is clearly in the wrong, the show will bend over backwards to side with her, even if it makes no sense whatsoever.
We don't want to offend you, ladies, because we know y'all are so sensitive. So don't worry, there will be no consequences for you.
Bullshit.
Even if you get the team in danger, assaulted someone, or are even a nuisance to begin with, you don't have to worry about taking responsibility because that's hard.
Bullshit.
No, we'll make the boys apologize to you. Let the boys put up with your attitudes, your fucked-ups, and get possibly killed by doing so because they're big, strong men. They can handle it.
bullshit.
They can handle taking responsibility when they fuck up, but we know you girls are so sensitive with your emotions, and we don't want you to cry about it, so you can act however you want with no repercussions whatsoever.
Bullshit, 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 bullshit. Equality means taking responsibility for yourself, regardless of gender. Normalize taking accountability for your actions. Going back to the episode, it's revealed that April is part Krang, which sadly makes this episode essential to the plot. So far, I am not a fan of Season 2 April. I admit I misjudged her in Season 1, but Season 2 April is getting on my nerves. So far, we are halfway through the season, and I think she's awful. But I'm hoping that maybe she'll make a turn for the better. Okay, so after that god-awful episode, the rest of Season 2 has some episodes where April is in peril, but again, she does start progressing as a ninja. In some instances, the group will be in peril with her, or she'll be the one saving them at times. As for the love triangle, I notice at this point she's leaning towards Casey Jones a bit more, but still has her moments with Donnie. I bring this up because the show still wants to focus on this rather than April looking for her dad until episode 16, where the show finally remembers April's dad is a mutant. Now in this episode, April returns back to her determined self again, this time being the one to save her dad instead of the turtles like last season. Yeah, she had her one dumbass in distress moment when she barked at Donnie after falling into the mutagen. But to be fair, she thought she was going to turn into a mutant, and we didn't know until now that she's immune to mutagen. So I'll give her a pass. The rest of the season, she's pretty much the same, getting into peril but finds a way to help out, whether by outsmarting the enemy or progressing as a fighter. By the season finale, it's revealed that her friend Irma was Krang subprime all along in a twist that I actually didn't see coming and loved. Although yeah, I am upset that Irma didn't join the King. I would have loved to see her interact with the turtles and maybe be geeky friends with Donnie, which maybe I'll make an Irma video in the future. But back to April. After the reveal that her friend was Krang subprime, she spends the rest of the finale helping out the turtles as more of an equal now. I wouldn't say she's completely there, but she has progressed since the beginning of this season, and it does feel natural. When the gang has to flee to New York after the Krang successfully mutates New York, they head to April's family farm, leaving behind their friends, Splinter, and...
Not again!
Seriously, again? Maybe I should have added Kirby on my top 5 dumbasses in distress too. I'd say Season 2 is where April's character is starting to waver. So although she does get kidnapped a lot during the first 2 seasons, she does find ways to either save herself, outsmart the enemies, or progressively gets better at fighting. She does get kidnapped the most, but everyone else has their captured moments too, including the turtles. But I was not a fan of her in the beginning of Season 2. I can't stand her dumbass in distress moments and her falling into the cheese plate trope. I find that so annoying, and the show doesn't do well selling me on these tropes. But I can't say she's not as manipulative as I thought she was. I remember when I was younger how I thought April was this manipulative, cock-teasing she-demon who plays with the boys' hearts to get whatever she wants. But rewatching this season, I have to admit I was wrong. Yeah, she does flirt with Casey at times and has her shipping moments with Donnie, but she's not intentionally playing with both their heartstrings like I remembered. In fact, rewatching this season makes me realize how Casey and Donnie had their creepy moments with her. Ugh. I'll go into more detail in my future shipping video. So far, I can say April isn't that bad of a character as I originally thought she was. It's more of the tropes and roles the writers decide to give her that make me mad. But it's not the character itself that's terrible. I think I was more annoyed that she was the target of the majority of kidnaps, was the token girl stuck in a love triangle that the 2010s were famous for, and she had her bitchy moments with the guys. So I'm starting to see what April defenders are saying, but I wouldn't go so far as to say she's a great character. She's decent, and I do appreciate the slow burn of her developing into a kunoichi and the mystery behind her connection to the Krang. But the show wants to focus on who she will end up with rather than who she is as a character, which is not a good sign. If the biggest reel of your female character is who she'll romantically be paired up with, then it shows she's more of a prize than an actual person or a respected member of the team. You can have your romances, but it shouldn't be the main focus, especially if there's more urgent matter that she's going through. But we're halfway done with the series. Does April get better as the series continue, proving me wrong? Or is she just the prize for the boys to fight over? Find out in part 2. I didn't realize how much I would cover in the first 2 seasons. I ended up writing 12 pages in this part, and I don't want the video to be too long. So subscribe for part 2. And scene. Guess what? I just started making my own comic series. My first short just came out. Please go check it out. If I could summarize what Generation Defenders is about in 2 words, it would be stranger danger. I'm really excited about rebooting my original comics, and I hope you guys can go check it out.
But what about Goten Black?
It's still coming. I just want to do new things too. Don't worry. In fact, you can read the available pages on my Patreon right now, get behind-the-scenes commentary, and get updates on my new pages of Goten Black every Thursday. It's just $3 a month, and it will help us get Goten Black out quicker. Think $3 is too much? That's okay, because Goten Black Chapter 6, Part 1 and 2 No Audio is now available on my channel membership for $1.99. We also have super things if you want to make a one-time donation, which will be shout out in our community tabs and in our next videos. Speaking of which, shout out to all my Patreon members. You guys are incredible. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to help support the Goten Black project. I can't believe we actually almost got to 2.5k subs. That's double from last year. Subscribe to help us get to 5k. Bye guys!